The world of British politics has long been a battleground of half-truths, evasions, and party political games, but recent events in the House of Commons should leave no one with any illusions about the state of leadership in the Labour Party under Keir Starmer. The performance of the opposition leader during Prime Minister's questions, PMQs, was not just a failure, it was an embarrassing display of incompetence, dishonesty, and sheer evasiveness that further erodes any lingering confidence in his ability to lead. When a political leader cannot answer direct questions, cannot defend their record, and cannot offer a coherent vision for the future, what does that say about their readiness to govern? Keir Starmer's recent appearance at PMQs was nothing short of a disgrace. The Labour leader attempted to launch a frontal attack on the government's economic record, but his strategy was transparent: rely on broad accusations, avoid specifics, and hope to sow doubt. The issue with this approach, however, is that it's all bluster and no substance. When pressed by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on critical issues such as the national insurance rise, Starmer faltered. He didn't answer the question directly, choosing instead to repeat tired talking points about the government's failures. This failure to engage with reality was a crucial misstep. A leader who cannot confront difficult questions head-on shows precisely the kind of weakness that the nation cannot afford in a time of crisis. But Starmer's incompetence was not confined to his inability to answer questions. It was his repeated contradictions and evasions that exposed him for what he truly is, an opportunist more interested in scoring political points than in offering meaningful solutions. Take, for instance, his attempts to paint himself as a defender of the vulnerable. He lambasted the government for its fiscal policies, but when pressed on whether he would exempt vital services like hospices from national insurance hikes, he simply could not offer a clear stance. His failure to answer exposed a lack of coherent policy direction, and worse, it revealed his unwillingness to put forward concrete alternatives. The British public does not need a leader who excels at pointing out problems, without the courage or vision to solve them. At this moment in British politics, the stakes could not be higher. The nation is facing a critical period of economic instability, with rising taxes, inflation, and business uncertainty. What we need from our political leaders is not more rhetoric and more deflection but clear, decisive answers. And yet, every time Starmer was confronted with questions that required more than just a soundbite, he crumbled. His political evasion was so blatant that it could not be seen as anything other than an attempt to avoid responsibility for the mess Labour left behind during their time in power. Instead of offering any sort of viable plan for the future, Starmer sought to deflect and discredit the government's efforts to repair the damage done. But what Starmer's performance truly revealed was the real problem with Labour's leadership. Under Starmer, the party has failed to present a viable economic alternative. The Labour leader's inability to offer a serious challenge to the government's policies exposed his party's complete lack of preparation. Rather than proposing a credible economic plan, Starmer resorted to attack politics, relying on broad, often misleading statements about the government's record while offering no solution of his own. If he truly believes the current government is failing, he should have been ready with a better, more compelling argument. Yet, as he fumbled under pressure, it became painfully obvious that he had no clear vision for the future. The fact that Starmer has struggled to answer direct questions about his own party's record and policies speaks volumes about his fitness for office. He repeatedly tried to shift the conversation onto the government's record while ignoring the critical issue of his own party's failures. When pressed on Labour's economic stewardship, Starmer deflected. When asked about specific policies, he failed to give a direct answer. This is not the behavior of a leader with the conviction or competence necessary to lead a nation through turbulent times. Moreover, Starmer's attempts to climb to the moral high ground, condemning the government's policies for affecting the vulnerable, rang hollow. His words were nothing more than empty rhetoric when he failed to back them up with any meaningful action or credible policy alternatives. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but offering real solutions requires more than just denouncing the opposition. It requires a leader who has the will and the capability to get things done. Starmer demonstrated neither. What's more, Starmer's failure to back up his words with actions is an indictment of his entire political career. As the leader of the opposition, he has had ample opportunity to prepare for these kinds of questions, to have answers ready, and to demonstrate that Labour has a clear plan to address the challenges the UK faces. Instead, He continues to rely on the same tired criticisms of the government's record, hoping that by attacking enough, the public will overlook his party's own failures. But this approach is not only ineffective, it's dangerously short-sighted. If Starmer cannot lead his party through the political arena without crumbling under pressure, what does that say about his ability to lead the country? The truth is, Keir Starmer's performance at PMQs was a disaster for his credibility and for the Labour Party. His inability to answer questions directly, his evasions, and his contradictions leave the public with no choice but to question his competence and integrity. If Labour hopes to return to power, it will need to find a leader who can offer not just criticism but a credible vision for the future. And at this moment, Starmer is not that leader. His failure at PMQs was a wake-up call, not just for his party, but for the entire political establishment. If Labour continues down this path, it risks irrelevance, leaving the country to wonder just what Starmer stands for, aside from political expediency.